A lot of men that I speak with have the desire to start their own business, and the appeal of working largely virtually is pretty obvious. You can live anywhere in the world. You can be more profitable without the need for a fancy physical space in a lot of ways. And you can live on your own terms. And a lot of people want to do this, but not a lot of people are able to do it in a way that's profitable and is able to provide for their family and lucrative. But today I have one of those people on the podcast. This is a fellow by the name of Bryant Suellentrop. And I have been following Bryant's progression now for a number of years. He has started businesses from nothing. He's been able to build a highly successful business in just a couple of years. I think you'll enjoy hearing his story. Bryant is not one to he's not one to go around talking about what he's doing and why he's doing it. So I think this was a real privilege to have him on to sort of share his story about how he got here, and he's just a young guy in his 20s. So here is my conversation with Bryant Suellentrop. My name is Andy Flattery. I am the owner of Simple Wealth Planning, a registered investment advisor. All opinions expressed by me and my guests are solely our own opinions and do not reflect the opinions of Simple Wealth Planning. This podcast is for informational and entertainment purposes only and should not be relied upon as investment, tax, or legal advice. Clients of Simple Wealth Planning may maintain positions in the securities discussed in this podcast.
Lights that flash in the evening.
I would say it started when I was in middle school and working around my dad's shop, seeing what he was doing. He did real estate property management, and scraping gum, doing demo on retail properties, just helping around. And then in high school, I always tried to do leadership stuff. My dad always encouraged me, to be involved, right? Which is like a good parent, sometimes overly involved, but like lots of organizations. And one of those that I got involved in was Web Team at Bishop Carroll. And so we actually had this unique thing where you could take a coding class and then you could apply to be on the web team. And so I took the coding class my sophomore year of high school, applied to be on the web team my junior year, and was part of like the graphic design division. We had like 4 divisions. And then the next year I applied and I was the web master. And so I ran the school website, like quite literally. If there was a sports game, if there was an article, if they were raising money, we had to put all that together. And I ran a team of like 12 high schoolers when I was 18. Mm-hmm. And looking back, that was, so just that into the web design business, into, doing a little bit of sales. And then from there, getting into the janitorial business, and then now into what I'm doing now. And then with what I'm doing now, obviously doing Catholic careers, obviously that's more of a passion project. So
Yeah. Well, tell me about that. Like, tell me about how you got to where you are today. And I met you back in your web development days, but then how did that pivot into cleaning toilets? And then
sure.
And then like, what is the connection between the various businesses here that you've been involved in over the last few years?
I would say the connection is just not being afraid to try things. And so like you said, you knew me from my web design business, North Star Web Design, closed that last year, but it was essentially a freelancing web development agency. And I had the fortunate, relationship with a friend from high school who had also started his own business, and he knew I had web skills, and we kind of like, we would go to the brewery or something and just like have like one beer and talk like, oh, we could start a web design agency, right? And so that turned into me basically doing freelance web development. But that's
how old were you at the time, Bryant? Sorry.
I mean, I think, these were probably root beers. I was probably like 19. I think maybe when I started that company, I think it was between my sophomore and my junior year of high school or
right,
college.
21 is the drinking age.
college.
Yeah.
So ran a web design agency, and it was good, but it essentially functioned as a side hustle for me to make beer money during college. Was the real purpose there.
Yeah.
And then and once I figured out, honestly, it was one of the worst things that happened to my academic performance, because like once I figured out I could make money on my own, my grades dropped dramatically. So like the semester before I figured out how to like sell stuff, I had like a 3.9 or something like that. After that, I was like, I just knew that I wanted to do my own thing, like desperate. And so I started to only do the classes that I was passionate about, and passionate in the sense of like that I really cared about, that I thought really mattered, not in the sense of like passionate like hobbies, but like I really dialed in on certain courses, and then others I kind of just did what I had to do to get through Benedictine. And I took economics degree there, quit my double major because I was double majoring before that. I was like, I don't need that. I just need to get out of here with a degree, and then I'm gonna do my own thing. And so that's kind of how I got into that.
And then what led you to cleaning toilets, and then what led you to your current projects?
So from the web design agency that I was running while I was at Benedictine, it wasn't a really great way to make money. And so when I graduated from Benedictine, I was engaged to my wonderful bride, who I met there. And I thought, well, I'm a big kid, I'm engaged, I got to go get a real job, right? And so every summer since I was 16, I had been working for my grandfather's company, which is a manufacturing company based out of Wichita, Kansas.
Okay.
So I'd worked full, like 40-hour weeks, from 16 to whatever, 23 years old there. And what I did was I started on the shop floors and then kind of worked my way into marketing. And he said, well, our website needs to be redone. So I redid his website. And that eventually led to me, when I graduated, saying, hey, Grandpa, I want to do marketing for you, and I want to do outside sales. And so I did a little bit of marketing, and then I did a lot of outside sales. But I did that for about a year while my wife was getting her doctorate in physical therapy in Eastern North Carolina. Kansas, North Carolina, very far away from each other. And we were engaged at the time, and it was killing me. I was like, I got to get out there, because I'm like, I don't even know how to do engagement. Like it's very hard to even like be engaged, properly discern. Big believer here that engagement is like a season of discernment. Couldn't even really do that from halfway across the country, right? And so there was a global pandemic, and I also wanted to move, over to North Carolina. And so the global pandemic killed my outside sales job. Basically, there was like no more commission, right? Because like who is buying things, for this several month period, especially automotive aftermarket, products. Now, the next year they had a banner year. They did great, but no one knew that in 2020. So I moved to North Carolina. I started a cleaning business. Why did I do a cleaning business? Because I knew I could clean toilets. I have always had that skill. No, and I knew that I could sell, right? So I set up a little website, talked to a ton of people, just said, hey, I have a cleaning company. Set up my Google My Business profile. Somebody calls me. I go and I do the little tour. I do a little inspection. I have my notepad with me. I walk around this, I haven't even told this story exactly in this much detail, but it was actually a sorority, which is even funnier. So the sorority, like 22 girls living in this building. I'm walking around this sorority, giving her a quote, and on my little notepad, it's like, I'm walking around and thinking, buy mop, buy things. I didn't even have a vacuum at the time. Able to draw up a quote just based on like, oh, my hourly rate should be roughly XYZ. It'll take me however many hours. And I sent over the quote. She accepted it the same day. And sure enough, right then I had my first $25,000 a year client. Like it was $2,000 a month.
It is amazing. Just showing up, being professional, having a good smile. the things that you can accomplish. That's pretty awesome.
Thanks. And yeah, so from there I went and I went to Lowe's. I bought a vacuum, bought a mop, bought the things that I needed. And that, that client rolled into another sorority that was like $1,500 a month. And so I was doing all the cleaning by myself. And eventually I figured out, like, I got to hire people. It was a really good thing about the cleaning business was that I realized very quickly that I have to hire people because I'm very limited. And like, I can only clean so many hours a day. I can only like clock 50,000 steps, 60,000 steps on my Apple Watch so many times. It's very much like a limiter. And so I started hiring people who were 2-3 times my age. Very, very challenging. But I learned a lot from that experience. And soon enough, we grew that company to, a couple $100,000 a year in revenue and, a bunch of employees, or like 20 employees. And it was a headache because I was recruiting people during the pandemic. No one wanted to work. Everybody was being paid for, the unemployment bills they were just sending money out to people. And I don't begrudge anyone for taking those funds. And it was a crazy time. And, people just were doing what was in their best economic interest. Turns out those things matter. People are very, rationally irrational. And so I recruited these people, but I figured out how to manage them and all these challenges. And what I realized was we got pregnant at the time, so we get married, we find out we're expecting 5-6 months after that. And so about a year into this cleaning business, or a little over a year, I know that I'm gonna have a son due. And my friend's like, dude, you can't do this. Like a friend of mine who's like got a couple $1 million a year cleaning business, he got 50-60 employees. He has 2 boys. And he said, dude, you can't, like, you're not gonna be able to sustain this. And I'm like, oh no, it's fine. He's like, what do you do if somebody quits? Like, what do you do if somebody quits tomorrow? Or what do you do if you get a new client? Do you just tell them, like, hey, we're not going to clean? I'm like, no, I'll go do it. He's like, yeah, you're not going to be able to do that when your wife is a week postpartum. So a very good friend of mine, very helpful to me, pointed that out. And he said, you should go hire somebody in the Philippines to help you. And I'm like, first of all, I'm trying to hire people in Eastern North Carolina. I don't know what you're talking about. Secondly, where is the Philippines? And he said, no, you hire somebody to help you. You really don't need to be doing the cleaning. You need to be doing the recruiting, the back office, the invoicing, all of those kinds of, like, all the strategic stuff and the office stuff. But if you hire somebody offshore, because this was the thing, I didn't have enough money to hire anybody locally because this was a startup. Remember, I was making my wife and I were living on like $1,200 to $1,500 a month.
Nice.
It was like frozen pizzas, cheap rent, walks in the park.
Yeah, not to brag.
It was the best 2 years of my life, but it was also incredibly challenging. I look at it now and it's like, we spend more just on childcare every month than I did, than our whole burn rate was at the time. And so that's one of the lessons, is be as lean as you possibly can if you're going to start a company. But anyway, I hired this girl in the Philippines at the recommendation of a friend to help with some of the office, the recruiting work, all that kind of stuff. It changes everything for me because all of a sudden I have somebody that I can actually afford to pay. I was paying her like $600 a month, and she was working for me, like 30 hours a week. And she was helping with recruiting, invoicing, getting me organized, because I'm a doer. I'm a get things done guy. I'm a vision guy. I'm a big guy. I like to get big things done. I don't have time to be organized. So
right.
He was my counterbalance, right? And that changed everything for me. It allowed us to grow. It allowed us to become systematized, and for me to work a lot less and be there for my wife and my son, Levi. And so that was really just a huge breakthrough for me. And I had plenty of friends who were in the same position. They had an HVAC company or a pressure washing company or a window cleaning business, and they were answering the phone all hours of the day. And that's just like no way to live your life. I mean, it's okay, but it's the type of thing that will make, sometimes people say businesses can become a sort of a form of prison of your own making. And that's where a lot of my friends were. And so recommending, hey, you can actually afford to hire some administrative help. They might not be based in your state, but you can hire a contractor offshore, and that'll solve a lot of your issues. And so I started essentially a headhunting agency to find those types of people, because it does require a whole bunch of skills to do that. I'll tell you the part about the first girl I hired. When I hired her, she didn't have a good computer. She didn't have a good internet connection. She didn't have a backup internet connection. She didn't have a generator in case there was an outage. Her home was what you think of when you think of a developing country. I mean, it was humble. It was extremely humble. So much so that 3 months into me working with her, her house literally slid like down a cliff because of mudslides. And I fronted her the cash to basically rebuild that house. And then she paid me back over a period of like 2 years. But she was that valuable to me. And so I figured out how to, hire people that weren't so, we're going to present so many challenges to my friends. And I did that. And so we grew Elevate and Delegate. We started that. When I say we, I mean me and my wife, I guess, is a partner, but it's just me. And we grew that starting back in the end of, 2021, like December, like January 2022. And then we've been in that now for just about 2.5 years. And we've done over 900 placements for different businesses. And so we worked with businesses large and small, solopreneurs to, companies doing 100 million in revenue. And it's been like the ride of a lifetime.
Amazing. And what was the come to Jesus moment where you thought to yourself, okay, this cleaning thing, it's kind of working, having some issues though, but recruiting, like that could be really something. Like what was the light bulb that clicked with you with regards to that?
Along the way, when I was running my cleaning business, I was posting on social media.
Yeah,
typically,
I know.
It was called Twitter at the time.
Right.
And I was just being, I guess, relatable. I was just sharing information about what I was doing, and I was just trying to make friends. I never went there with the intention of making any money. If anything, I went with there, just with the intention of having other business owners to commiserate with. And, hey, help. And so, but I started to really receive some sage advice from a lot of the people on there as far as like, hey, you could do this, or have you tried this, or, you can enhance your Google business profile by doing this. And so I made all these really wonderful contacts. It was a really special place because during COVID, a lot of really wonderful and incredible and successful people had extra time on their hands to be on the internet because they couldn't be doing all of the functions that they normally do, like go to Lake Tahoe. So they're sitting at their house DMing me, on Twitter, answering my most pressing questions. And I'm like, this is amazing. And so I just shared more and more of my journey. And over the last couple of years, it's grown to about 30,000 followers. And I think at the time when I launched Elevate and Delegate, I was at maybe 10,000 followers. But I've been talking about how I've been using this offshore. I've been, hey, this has been so helpful. This person's been so wonderful, all these things. So that when I finally hung out a shingle and said, hey, I'm helping people do this, you should have seen my calendar. I mean, it was just flooded with meetings. It was the most incredible thing. And that's low risk entrepreneurship right there, right? Is building demand. Every business is basically demand and supply to some degree. And if you can build up one side or the other, preferably demand and then bring the supply, it puts you in a really low risk position. And so that business kicked off quickly. We're up to, we quickly grew to like 5-6 employees, all based in the Philippines for that business. Now we're at 10, and mostly recruiters and account managers. And I've been running that business ever since.
That's awesome. And I remember, reading about this idea probably all the way back with like the Tim Ferriss 4-Hour Workweek book.
Right.
So like virtual assistant, that's been around for a while, but tell me about that. The idea of hiring offshore talent to work virtually. Like, tell me about the opportunity there and kind of where that whole thing is at this point.
Tim Ferriss's book came out in 2008, I believe. Mm-hmm. So we're what, 16 years removed from that now?
Wow. That's amazing.
Back in 2008, 2009, we were getting the first kind of iPhones, right? I believe, I can't remember what year the iPhone came out, but somewhere around there, you know, right as the recession hit and kind of the aftermath of that. And that technology is basically just available to us. Now there's an iPhone in the hand of, I mean, it doesn't matter if you make, I mean, there's people that make $5,000 a year, you know, in the Philippines. They got an iPhone. They got some kind of smartphone. They've got internet connection. They've got stable power. If they're in like a good electrical grid. I mean, all of that has changed in the last 15 years. You can successfully work out of your home as an individual almost anywhere in the world now. It did not used to be that way. You used to have to go into an office, particularly in the Philippines. If you're working US hours, you're commuting in the middle of the night. So you're driving, what, 2 hours into Manila so that you can go to your office, work there for 8 hours, and then drive 2 hours home out of Manila. It was really brutal. And now all of my employees work from their homes. And so just the barrier to entry to work with folks like that. I don't send computers. They already have them. I don't send, you know, internet, any of that stuff. It's already all there. So, and then you couple that with all of the software tools that we have now. Everything's based in the cloud. And so all of my software is accessible from anywhere in the world. And so whether I'm in, you know, Kansas or North Carolina, or whether they're in, you know, northern Philippines or southern Philippines or wherever, like we can all see the same stuff all the time. It didn't used to be that way with Tim Ferriss. I guess that's the point. And it used to be these simple admin tasks that you could get help with, but now we've hired full stack software developers, we've hired accountants with CPA backgrounds, we've hired analysts, we've hired a crazy amount of really talented people.
Yeah.
And I think that's the biggest change.
Amazing. I mean, yeah, there's you know, firms in my business, registered investment advisors that don't even have an office, that, you know, don't even have a physical presence. They just exist, you know, digitally. People working comfortably where they want to work. I imagine that it's a competitive wage. Like it's a win-win for everybody. Like you can pay a wage here in the States that is cost advantageous to you, but they're happy to accept that wage in the Philippines as well. Is that fair to say?
Yeah, that's right. Almost everybody that we employ, they're receiving like a 25-30% salary increase from the jump of their previous role, almost always. I mean, there's obviously cases where people were paid like a lot more in a previous role, and sometimes they come down, but they also recognize that, and it's not usually an issue. We create a lot of win-win situations. And the biggest thing is, you know, people working in their homes, right? I mentioned this before, but like a lot of the individuals, like they might have literally a 2-hour commute into Manila or Cebu or one of the major cities to get to the office. And that takes away from family time, like dramatically. The people that are on my team, they all have like nannies that help watch their kids.
Yeah. You know, do you remember the South Park, Randy, when he's like, they took our jobs?
Yes.
I feel like this skirts above that because it's just like white collar work. Nobody cares if your Zoom job gets taken by someone that wants it more. You know, like the whole Randy South Park thing was better when it was like people were taking manufacturing jobs and stuff like that. So I don't know. Do you get, like, I don't care, honestly. Do you get flack from people that are like, hey, you're offshoring work that could be done? Yeah, I imagine you do.
I hate America. You know, a lot of, it's un-Catholic. It's you know, whatever. I've gotten a lot of fun comments, but they're mostly overwhelmingly positive. And if you've had interactions with these individuals, like, it's life-changing opportunities for almost everything and we have a minimum standard of like what we will let people contract out at. So like if somebody comes to me and they say, I want to pay them $2 an hour, like we're not working with that client. Like just, and the big difference for us is like, we're a headhunting agency, right? And so what we do is we charge a fee to find the individual and place that in that person's business. we do not charge an ongoing fee to manage them or a portion of that person's wages. Almost every single, this is a multi-billion-dollar industry. Like 98% of this industry operates under a model where they hire a bunch of people in the Philippines and they rent them out to you. And so they're taking an ongoing margin of that person's salary, which I think can be done somewhat ethically, but it's very questionable because, like, let's say you want to give that person a raise. You can't do that. Or you're giving that company like a weird share of that raise as well, generally.
Interesting.
So,
okay. Yeah, I get it.
Is we're placing these contractors full-time into people's businesses. And so they actually they're treated like real people, not as just people that are kind of rented out to you, like I said. So, and the reality is, like, I look at this from like at least from a US standpoint, we have a shortage of labor in almost every single industry. So if you look at any industry that's not a Zoom industry, like you were saying,
yeah.
So go teaching, go healthcare. I mean, do you know what nurses make when they get out of college now?
My wife's a nurse.
Money, yeah. I mean, it can be, not always, but it's like my nurse friends. They're like, they want to stop working, but they're like, I really don't want to say no to this pay because it's solid.
Yeah.
Lots of good opportunities working with your hands, plumbing, HVAC, and there are so many good opportunities for people that want it. And so we just don't have enough people. And we definitely don't have enough people that want to work in the US.
Did you ever read Shoe Dog, the Phil Knight book?
I've heard about it so much. I've never read it.
It's a great book. I know like Nike gets a lot of flack for whatever hiring sweatshop labor, whatever the critique is, but the book is awesome. He was basically a college kid that had a thesis for maybe his MBA or something like that, to basically do Nike and go out and manufacture shoes in Southeast Asia. And he was just part of that trend. And I kind of view this as part of that trend too. I have to ask you though, Bryant, about Twitter.
Sure.
Are you on Twitter to have fun? Are you on Twitter mainly to now supplement, or basically mainly to develop your business? Just tell me about how you think about Twitter and how you view the platform. Like, do you enjoy Twitter? Because I have watched your rise on Twitter and you're quite good at it.
Twitter's rough right now. I'll be honest. I was very excited about Elon taking over the company and
yeah, what's Elon saying to you?
So forth, but it seems pretty obvious to me that like it's under some financial pressure right now, and the quality of the content because of that has dropped dramatically because they're really feeding into people's probably most base instincts. I'm seeing more knife fights on there. I'm seeing more like just like garbage clickbait content than I ever have before.
I've never seen a knife fight on Twitter.
So much garbage.
Okay.
And you can click I'm not interested. You can click like certain things, but you may know what I mean by just like there's a lot of just garbage in the feed right now. And so that part has been frustrating, but Twitter easily, I tweeted the other day that I think Twitter easily shaved off 10 years of my career. Like the people that I was able to meet, the customers I was able to acquire, and the strategic contacts I now have due to it. I mean, I've had speaking opportunities that I've been paid for. I've had other things that I've been able to do. Paid for in the sense of I get to go to conferences for free a couple times. But my goal is absolutely not to make money on there, like in any kind of course or I will teach you to be rich type of thing. It's much more in the vein of like, if I make some money because I meet some great people and they're interested in what we're doing, then that's wonderful. But it's more of a side effect. And I use it mostly as therapy because I go on there and it's an outlet where I can talk to my business friends and they can give me feedback that like, if I gave all that info to my wife, she would go crazy.
Well, I mean, never say never. Isn't the move for you, Bryant, when you sell your businesses to private equity or whoever, and you get a big paycheck. Then you write your book and you create your course and all that. At that point, isn't that the path for somebody like you? I'm saying it a little bit in jest, but it's also kind of true, right? Isn't that what people do?
It is what some people do, but I think that's kind of like small ball. So I think there's only two ways to do that well. There's like you become super, super niche and specific, where like the people in your niche love you so much that they're willing to pay like $20,000 to go to a mastermind with you and like learn your thing. And that could be like a lot of different things. Or you become like so enormous that you're like a Gary V, like one of the really big ones. And then yeah, you're making so much money because you can get a book deal and make, several $100,000, right? Like that's pretty sweet. But I don't think that there's like, I think a lot of people try to do the influencer thing and it just becomes like a huge burden on them personally. They have to tweet. They have to come out with the next course. They have to write their email newsletter. They have to. And they build a team. I mean, just go off on it. I have a friend who was an influencer on Twitter. He built the course. He grew that company to millions of dollars in sales. Built a team around him. He had account managers. He had salespeople. He had customer service. He had all this thing. This thing's going to be a $10 million company. He did like $3 million his best year, I think.
Wow.
He chased that thing. He was running a lot of ads. He chased that thing into the ground. Andy, that guy has no money left because the ad costs went up and his business got crushed. He wasn't moving money to the side along the way. He didn't have good advisors. And, that's like not that abnormal, right? Mm-hmm. So I just think it's the allure of that is hot and heavy, but it's for a lot of people, but I don't think it's as good now that I've seen it. I've seen a lot of people go through it. I don't think it's as good as it gets.
Yeah. And is Elon sending you checks yet, by the way?
Yeah, but so that funny story about that. So Elon does his little like monetization, right? So if you get so many impressions or whatever, you get paid on Twitter, which I think is part of why the algorithm has gone to trash. So I was like, man, I got all these checks, and my accountant's like, do you have any more like 1099s or whatever it's called when you get you get paid over $600?
Right. Yeah, you got it.
And I'm like, yeah, I'm looking for this like one from Twitter. I'm like, where's this freaking 1099? I'm like, oh, like all those little payments last year, and it accounted for $522.
Okay.
Like whoop-de-doo, you know what I mean? Like, I mean, it's just like, it seems like it's such a, it only works if you play the straight up engagement game. That's the only way to make any real money out of that. And even then, one really good contact that you can make on social media can make you a lot more money, right? So that's why I just encourage people to not sell into social, but use it for the contacts.
Yeah. So I want to talk about a tweet that I found. I don't know if this is your most viral. I imagine it is. You said, it broke my brain when I realized most people making $125,000 a year don't work significantly harder than many people making $25,000 a year. This was April of 2022, Bryant, and you had 143,000 likes.
Yeah.
How was that day when you had that tweet?
Dude, I'll be honest, at a certain point you mute it because you're like, this is just like, it's fun. It went viral. It gets big, and then it gets out of like the business circle. It goes to like communist Twitter. Okay. And then they're all like, eat the rich. And you're I gotta be not involved in this. But like, yeah, a lot of people liked it because they realized that there is a lot of truth to that. And a lot of people are dumb for, you just now realized that? Like, nobody knows that when they're making $25,000 a year. Like, they don't actually know that you can get skills that give you more leverage on your time, and that's what's truly valuable. But it's absolutely true, and that's the thing that successful, financially successful parents and stuff, like those are the kinds of things that they transmit to their kids, and they just like normal working people don't. They just say, work harder.
Yeah, I totally agree. And were you trying to go viral? Was it just happenstance that one happened to take off? How did that work?
You could think about tweets as maybe like at bats, but then the better analogy is probably more like scratch off tickets.
Okay.
If you look at my Twitter, you can see I have like 30-some thousand followers. You can also see that I have 30,000 tweets that I've tweeted over the last 5 years or whatever.
Nice.
So it's 1/10 of 1% that goes that viral,
Right.
but you got to just keep taking your shots,
Yeah.
So it's more about just trying to be consistent, and that's what I would encourage anybody on social to do.
Yeah. Yeah. It's awesome. So one of the things that you notice, like, especially with like financial stuff on Twitter, but I think this goes for in a lot of areas, like there's just a lot of grifters. And, when it comes to like entrepreneurship, there's all sorts of people trying to sell the dream, like sell the course, say, here's how you can, work in your PJs, and, all it takes is like buy my course and hustle and grind. And there you have it. Like, what have you learned by engaging in like that sort of content? Because I imagine it sounds like you've got some good advice and you found some people that like were legit.
Yeah.
But it doesn't work out for everybody, but for some reason it has for you. So what have you learned?
So do the thing before you ask. Try to do the thing before you ask how to do the thing, for one. Because once you've tried your hand at it some, you can know pretty quickly if someone's just like totally 100% full of it, or if they've actually tried that as well. Because some amount of like experience in an industry, like it'll help you figure out who's legit and who's not. Whereas if you just come in and you're just like, oh, how do I make money? Like you shouldn't be searching
Right.
like, how do I make money? It's just the wrong question to ask.
Right. Yeah. If your goal is to make money, you've already lost.
Yeah, and there's a whole, conversation there to be had just there. But like, how do you know if it's a grifter? To be totally honest, like, I've spent upwards of $15,000, probably 20, on stuff that like wasn't that valuable to my business. Like courses that I bought, mentorship that I've paid for, any number of those types of things, conferences, easily increased the amount of money. But you do have to try things. I would just say make sure that the risk is commensurate with like where you are in life. And so like, a $50 course probably isn't going to like kill anyone, but it may help you out. Also
Yeah.
though, like, have you tried to find the information on the internet for free? Because most of it is out there.
I think that's good advice. Commensurate with where you're at. If you're spending 15 grand, but your business is doing 100, 200, 300 grand a year plus, that's just it's a fraction of your gross revenue. If you're trying to put the cart before the horse, maybe it's not a great investment.
The other thing, well, here's the other thing I would say is the best experience I ever had working with like a mentor guy was when I was getting Elevate and Delegate up and running. And he was just essentially like a coach on building out your offer and like creating it in a more productized way. And he helped me do a lot of things like that I didn't know how to do, which really without him, I don't think I would be where I am today. The thing that, even though it was thousands of dollars to work with him, it wasn't like crazy. It was like maybe $3,000 over 6 months. Like it wasn't insane, but I had 2 references for him that are people I already knew. So if you're going to buy a course, I always say, or if you're going to work with a mentor, references, references, references. That also goes if you're ever going to hire someone to help you run ads for anything. You need references, and not references they provide, but like references of people that you already know.
Yeah.
And if you feel like, oh, they don't have any references of people I know, ask the people that you do know, because they'll have references. Like they'll know people.
Yeah. I kind of view myself as an entrepreneur, like in the broad sense. You know, I do things that are entrepreneurial, but really like my business is literally just like a professional gig that I was working before for a firm. Now I work for myself. I feel like you are like an entrepreneur, like in the strict sense, like you know, are looking for different opportunities. You know, your next opportunity may or may not be related to what you're doing. It probably will be like tangentially related, but like, what's like, what do you think the path is for you from here? I know you're launching another, you said it's called it more of a passion project, but do you take it kind of one day at a time, or is there a grand plan, or how do you kind of view your path from here?
Yeah, one day at a time is definitely like a phrase that I use a lot. I don't really believe in like big vision, like I believe in vision casting, like in the sense of like, let's build this big, beautiful thing. Look at what it could be. But I don't really believe in like 3-year goals. Really, even 1-year goals are very like tough. Like quarterly goals is basically where everyone should be operating, like at the quarterly goal level. And then what do you need to do this month to get there? And then like what from this month, like what do you have to do today? And that's basically it, because anything larger than that, you're just going to miss the mark. And so the cool thing about that too is that it leaves you open to other opportunities kind of as you go. And so I think the good thing about participating in a business is like with the web design agency, for example, it's like I realized that I was essentially freelancing and I couldn't expand that beyond just me. And then with the cleaning business, I realized like, okay, I can grow this business, but I can't scale this business. It's very linear. Like I hire another cleaner, I can do another $50,000 a year in revenue. I hire another cleaner, I can do another $50,000 a year in revenue. And then with the recruiting business, I was like, oh, I can hire like, it is still a services business, but it's infinitely more scalable. And so like my margins are way better. And then this next move I'm making, like as you kind of implied, is I'm building a marketplace for job seekers. And so people that are looking for jobs can go there, employers can go there, they can connect with each other and find opportunities. And that'll serve really as a marketplace of talent. And it should be very light on people. Like it should be pretty much infinitely scalable. Like with a couple people involved in it, like me and like, probably 2 to 3 other people at its peak, at its very biggest, it'll do well. And so, but if you don't start the first thing, you never learn what you need in the next thing. I mean, at least for me, like I'm very much like a stove is hot. Okay, don't touch the stove. That's how I learn. And like, fortunately, you can do that if you don't spend a lot of money getting business started. So, I basically started all these business with $0. I mean, the cleaning business started with, $500, and then this next Elevate and Delegate, I poured probably $5,000 in to get started. And this Catholic Careers job website, I've kind of rolled my own money into it. I probably put $15,000 into it, but that's it. And I think it's you could get started with a business for way less money than everybody thinks. So that's the other thing I would recommend.
Yeah. I love it. You're a Benedict and Raven, as you mentioned, your wife is too. We're recording this in June, so we're like, a month probably after the whole sort of Harrison Butker thing, when he did the speech at commencement, which kind of went viral. I loved it, but you were texting me about this and you're like, hey, we should talk about how this Butker situation is related to sort of ownership and the Benedict option. What are your thoughts on this situation?
Okay, so let's pull together like a bunch of different thoughts, I guess.
Yeah.
You're a Catholic. I'm a Catholic. You really
Yes.
care about your faith. I really care about your faith, about my faith and your faith. It's super important to me. One of the most beautiful and amazing and incredible things that the Catholic Church has done over the since its existence, has put in together these institutions, hospitals, churches, schools, parishes, universities, these behemoths, but then also businesses, right? Like lots of businesses that were owned and ran by Catholics and served Catholics in a lot of ways. And so the super interesting thing about the Butker speech was, for those that don't know, Harrison Butker, kicker for the Kansas City Chiefs, he essentially spoke at my alma mater's commencement speech this past spring, like you said, and he said a few things that were extremely countercultural, but not that crazy if you like lived through America, longer than 5 minutes ago. He said things like we need mothers to like really be mothers, like that is the most important role that they have. He also called on men to be masculine and to be fathers and to embrace that. And the thing about commencement speeches is everybody wants you to talk about your work. What are you going to be, your professional accomplishments and achievements and all these kinds of things? And he really dialed it in on what is actually most important. And I agree 100%. Like, my family is infinitely more important than any professional achievement I will ever have. In fact, like, my family is the reason that I do most of what I do. And it's because like building businesses like this and having a diversified portfolio of things that I'm doing allows me to work a reasonable amount of hours, make a really good income, and spend a lot of time with my children and my spouse. So how does that tie into the Benedict option? The Benedict option is essentially an idea that I don't want to like mislead people on it, but Rod Dreher wrote a book, and essentially what he said is Catholics should kind of like cling in a community together and kind of separate themselves from the world. But the reality of the situation is that's not really an option. The barbarians are at the gate, as they say, or there's people. We have to be active in the world, because if you surrender the world, like if you surrender it entirely, you lose it. And so the beautiful thing that happened after Harrison Butker gave that speech, and the New York Times wanted to cancel him, and the Washington Post wanted to cancel him, and everybody wanted to cancel him, was that the wife of the owner of the Kansas City Chiefs wrote a big, long Instagram post about how she supported Harrison, and she wanted a lot of the things that he talked about for her own daughters, and she wanted to raise them with Christian values. And the difference that it makes when it's someone who owns the team, as opposed to, the talking heads of the world, like, I love the political commentators, but like they don't own anything. Ownership matters, I guess is my point. And
oh yeah, I 100%. Yeah. You can imagine like if the Kansas City Chiefs were some sort of like, I don't know, publicly traded stock run by, a board of directors and a DEI board and stuff like that, that it would have been a different outcome. So, yeah, I'm so curious about that. Like, was the response from the Chiefs, on the one hand, maybe it was just like, kind of where we are in 2024. People are just tired of everyone getting canceled. People are tired of this overly sensitive reaction to everything people say. I kind of got that with Mahomes when Mahomes was like, hey, I don't know, there's a lot of people on the team. A lot of people have different views. What are you going to do? Like, he's a good guy. That was kind of my impression of Mahomes. Mahomes wasn't saying I agree with him, but he was just kind of like, there's a lot of people on these teams. Like, what am I supposed to do? Like, have an opinion on every guy in the locker room, which I respected him for saying that. But also like what you're saying is maybe the Hunts are just good owners, and the fact that they, have a lot of clout being as how they're the owner of this team matters too. Like maybe this, I don't know, maybe this wouldn't have happened in San Francisco or I don't know. What's
Fine,
the
fine.
woke NFL team? I have no idea.
I can't think of a single other team where this would. Green Bay, the
Yeah.
Packers, maybe. I mean, there's very few like heart of America teams left. I mean, St. Louis isn't in St. Louis anymore. Like there's really like there's. I mean, the NFL does skew more conservative, but yeah, I think it's a big deal that she said that. And I think it gave a lot of like, hope to also a lot of like women who feel like they are constantly criticized for not working enough or not being in the home enough or whatever, because it is a difficult, my wife has a doctorate, she still works like, but it's a difficult line, it's a difficult line for them to dance and to do it well, because the world has mostly said that their dignity lies in work. So, but yeah, owning things, man, it just matters. You get final say. And I mean, there's a guy around here that built an HVAC company, supply company, and made a bunch of money. And he started like 10 Catholic high schools around here in the Raleigh diocese. You can't do that if you don't have money. Sorry. Like, so I think more Catholics should rise up, build great businesses, own things, and money is essentially influence, and use that influence in the world. So.
Well, nice, man. Well, hey, thanks so much for taking the time. It's been good to get a bit of your story. I really appreciate you sharing it, by the way. And yeah, where's the best place to go? You got a couple websites. You got people who have to check out your Twitter, of course. But what's a good off point for the listeners?
Yeah, so Twitter would be, x.com/SullyBusiness, which is spelled SULLY business. And then if you're interested in my recruiting agency, that's elevateanddelegate.com. And if you're interested in the Catholic job board for Catholic employers and Catholic job seekers, that is Catholic-careers.com.
All right. Well, good, man. Thanks for joining. Good stuff.
Thanks for having me, Andy.